It wasn't the accident that broke me. It was the way he forgot who he was before it. There are certain evenings that seem painted just for memory. The sun hung low above Chicago that day, spilling gold across the schoolyard where the noise of teenage laughter melted into the hum of a restless city. Maya Rivers sat quietly on the old bleachers, her sketchbook open on her knees. Her pencil moved with a patient rhythm, tracing the shape of clouds as if they were pieces of her own thoughts. She wasn't the kind of girl who demanded attention, she absorbed it, silently. There was something in her stillness that made people pause, even if they didn't understand why. Across the court, Ryan Hale was tossing a basketball between his palms, his friends calling his name, teasing him about a game later that night. He laughed with them, but his eyes kept drifting to the bleachers. There she was again, that same girl, always sketching, always distant from the noise. He walked toward her under the pretense of chasing the ball. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, breathless but confident. Maya didn't look up right away. "As long as you don't bounce that thing near my drawings." Ryan smiled. "Deal." They sat in silence for a while. The sounds of sneakers on pavement and the distant wail of a siren filled the air. He watched her draw, curious about what she saw in the world that made her want to put it on paper. "You're Ryan Hale," she said finally. "You're supposed to be at football practice." "And you're Maya Rivers," he replied. "You're supposed to be anywhere but here after class." A faint smile curved her lips. "I like this hour. Everything slows down. The city stops pretending." "Yeah," Ryan murmured, looking out toward the skyline. "Like it forgets how loud it is." That was how it began, two young hearts finding a quiet place in a noisy city. The years that followed were the kind people write songs about. Maya tutored Ryan in English literature. He'd bring her coffee in the library, pretending to be interested in the books she loved. They walked home together in rainstorms, sharing jackets and laughter. They went to prom awkwardly, nervously, and danced to a song neither would remember, because all they could think about was each other. They both got accepted into universities in the same city, she for fine arts, he for business. It felt like fate had decided to be kind. Ryan's world was numbers and momentum, Maya's was color and emotion. They were opposite, yet somehow perfectly balanced. On weekends, they'd sit by the Chicago River, watching the lights tremble over the water. "You ever think about the future?" Ryan asked one night. "All the time," Maya replied. "I just don't know what it'll look like." "I do," he said. "You'll have your studio, and people will fight to buy your sketches. I'll have a firm downtown with my name on the glass door. We'll meet for lunch halfway." She laughed softly. "You make it sound so simple." "That's because I don't plan on letting go of you," he said. Maya looked at him then, not as a boy from her class, but as the man she wanted to share her tomorrows with. By the time they were 25, the world had changed its colors. Ryan landed a job at a growing marketing firm. Maya began to exhibit her work in small local galleries. They rented a modest apartment near the lake, sunlight poured through big windows, and their furniture didn't match, but neither cared. It was the kind of happiness people envy because it looks so effortless. They were still best friends, finishing each other's sentences, cooking pasta at midnight, sketching plans for the life ahead. When Ryan finally proposed, he did it the way he did everything, sincerely and a little unpolished. He came home one evening, suit creased, tie loose, and handed her a small velvet box. "Maya," he said, his voice almost trembling, "you're already my home. I just want to make it official." She laughed through tears. "You didn't even kneel. Didn't want to risk the floor ruining my pants." She said yes before he could finish the joke. Their wedding was simple, held in a garden just outside the city. Her friends said it felt like spring had come alive that day. Ryan couldn't stop staring at her, the way the sunlight caught her eyes, the way her laughter filled the air like something holy. Afterward, when they drove back into the city as husband and wife, Chicago looked different. The same skyline they had watched as teenagers now shimmered with promise. They clinked glasses on their tiny balcony that night, rain tapping the railings. "To us," Ryan said. "To keeping it real," Maya replied. "And to never letting the city change us." She smiled. "You and I against the world." He leaned over and kissed her forehead. "Always." But the city below them hummed, vast, electric, and quietly merciless. At first, marriage felt like the calm after a long, brave storm. Maya and Ryan's new apartment was small but bright, white walls, thin curtains, and a balcony that framed the skyline like a living painting. Mornings began with laughter and the smell of toast, evenings ended with stories and plans whispered into the dark. Ryan loved his work. His marketing firm had landed a series of big clients, and his natural charm made him a rising star. Maya couldn't help but feel proud. The man she'd loved since high school was finally becoming the version of himself he'd always dreamt of. She was busy too. Her art was gaining attention online, and a local gallery had offered her a small exhibition. She spent her afternoons surrounded by brushes and unfinished canvases, lost in color and texture, while the city's heartbeat echoed outside her window. Everything looked perfect, but perfection, as life teaches, is often the moment before the fall. It started subtly. Ryan began staying out late, work dinners and networking events that bled into midnight. When he came home, he'd kiss her cheek distractedly, half listening as she told him about her day. He smelled faintly of perfume she didn't wear. Who was there? She'd ask lightly. Just clients. You wouldn't know them. She smiled, trying to sound casual. You should bring me along sometime. He chuckled. It's all business, love. You'd be bored to death. And just like that, another small piece of closeness went missing. Among Ryan's new circle was Liam Cross, his senior at the firm, sharp suit, sharper tongue. Liam was the sort of man who thrived on control, and he recognized Ryan's potential early. You've got talent, Hale, Liam told him one night over drinks. But if you want to play in the big league, you can't keep acting like a high school sweetheart. Image matters. Freedom matters. Ryan laughed it off at first. Maya's not holding me back. She's my center. Liam smirked. Center? Or anchor? Careful. There's a difference. That line stuck with him longer than it should have. Meanwhile, Maya had her own quiet battles. Her friends from the art world often joked that she was too soft for the industry, too genuine, too hopeful. People love tragedy, not purity, one gallery owner told her bluntly. She smiled politely, but those words lingered. She began doubting herself, wondering if her art was too naive, too sentimental in a city that rewarded spectacle. And at home, the silence began to stretch. When Ryan was gone, she painted in bursts, her colors grew darker, her strokes more chaotic. When he was home, he seemed distant, his mind elsewhere, his phone lighting up every few minutes with messages she never saw. One evening, she finally asked, "Do you still like being home?" He looked at her, surprised. "Of course I do." "Why would you ask that?" "Because sometimes," she said softly, "it feels like I'm not part of your world anymore." Ryan sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Maya, I'm working hard for us. For our future. You think I enjoy being away?" "No," she said. "I think you're forgetting what you were working for." He didn't answer. The silence that followed was heavy, not the comfortable kind they once shared, but one full of invisible walls. As months passed, those walls thickened. Liam's influence on Ryan deepened, parties, clubs, late-night business meetings. The firm's success became a new addiction. Ryan began to believe that power, not peace, defined adulthood. And then there was Jenna, Liam's associate, beautiful, clever, always laughing too loudly at Ryan's jokes. Maya met her once at a corporate dinner. Jenna complimented Maya's dress with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. After that night, Maya stopped asking where Ryan was going. She stopped waiting by the window when he texted, working late. Instead, she poured herself into painting, canvases filled with fractured cityscapes, colors bleeding into each other like bruises. Critics began to notice. Ironically, her heartbreak made her art more alive than ever. One night, around 2 a.m., Ryan came home drunk. He dropped his keys, stumbled toward the couch, and collapsed. Maya sat at the kitchen table, a mug of cold tea untouched in her hands. She didn't yell. Didn't cry. "Ryan," she whispered, "what's happening to us?" He looked at her, his eyes red, voice slurred but heavy with guilt. "I don't know. Everything's just moving too fast." "Then stop running." "I can't." It was the truest thing he'd said in months. Days turned into weeks. Maya's art career grew, Ryan's moral compass blurred. He started missing family events, ignoring calls, staying longer at the office. Liam praised his dedication. But dedication had turned into dependency, on validation, on the applause of people who didn't care about him beyond profit. One morning, Maya woke to a phone call. Ryan had been in an accident. The car had flipped on the expressway at 3:20 a.m. Witnesses said he was speeding. There was no sign of another vehicle, only a phone on the passenger seat, half-typed message still on screen, "I need to fix this." She didn't remember the hospital. Didn't remember who drove her there. Just sterile light, voices, the scent of antiseptic. Ryan was alive, barely. Machines breathed for him. Tubes tangled around his hands, the same hands that had once held hers so gently. The doctors said he had internal bleeding, severe head trauma. It's uncertain, they said, their voices practiced, distant. She sat by his side for days, whispering stories about their high school days, their river walks, the promises they made. He never opened his eyes. And then one evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, his heartbeat slowed, a soft, final surrender. The city lights flickered on as his faded away. The funeral was small. His parents cried quietly, his colleagues murmured about potential and what a loss. Maya stood apart, dry-eyed, numb. When everyone left, she remained, standing under the gray October sky, wind biting her cheeks. Liam came up behind her. His voice was low, rehearsed. He admired you. You should know that. Maya didn't answer. As he walked away, she whispered to the empty air, he was supposed to grow old with me. The words broke something inside her that no tears could mend. Months later, Maya returned to painting. Her new collection was titled Glass Skies. Critics called it haunting, breathtaking, tragic. People said she captured the fragile illusion of love in a modern world. She never explained what it meant. She didn't need to. On quiet nights, she'd sit on that same balcony where they once toasted to forever. The city still glowed below, indifferent, alive. She'd lift her glass toward the skyline and whisper, to us. The wind carried no answer. Only the faint hum of the city, restless, eternal. And somewhere between the noise and silence, she felt Ryan's presence, not gone, just changed, like light refracted through glass. The city didn't pause for grief. Chicago's streets remained alive with neon reflections on wet asphalt, taxi horns honking, and strangers brushing past each other like the ghosts of their own indifference. Maya walked those streets often now, sketchbook in hand, capturing shadows and reflections, not the city she once loved, but the one she had learned to navigate alone. Her apartment, once filled with laughter and late-night arguments over silly things, now echoed with emptiness. The walls were too white, the balcony too exposed. Every morning she poured coffee into 2 mugs, out of habit, then drank alone. Friends tried to reach her. Some well-meaning, others curious about the story of her loss. But Maya had grown wary. The words of others could not undo what had happened, and too many voices carried the subtle venom of judgment. Why didn't he? You should move on. It wasn't your fault. None of it mattered. Only her memories did, the river walks, the shared coffee, the nights on the balcony under fading sunlight. And the last words she had whispered at the hospital, he was supposed to grow old with me. Liam, the man who had subtly pushed Ryan toward ambition at any cost, remained in the background of her life. He would occasionally appear at exhibitions or corporate events, offering a polite, rehearsed condolence. He never admitted the part he played in shaping Ryan's final days. Maya didn't need that confirmation, she could see it in retrospect. She realized the tragedy wasn't just the accident, it was the slow erosion of innocence, the way the people around her and Ryan had shaped decisions that neither fully understood until it was too late. The city, with all its promises and lights, had been complicit too, unforgiving and indifferent. Her art became her voice. The pieces were darker now, more fragmented, yet achingly beautiful. Critics raved. Galleries clamored for her work. She was finally recognized for the genius she had always possessed, but the price had been catastrophic. In her darkest moments, she would sometimes imagine Ryan walking through her studio, shaking his head at the chaos of her canvases. Sometimes, she would see him sitting quietly by the window, sketching beside her, just like they had in high school. And in those fleeting visions, she felt a small, bitter comfort. Months turned into years. Maya continued to live in the city that had taken so much from her but had also given her a medium to express her sorrow. She formed cautious friendships and trusted sparingly. Occasionally, she met young couples and wondered if love was always this fragile, if every promise was destined to be tested by forces beyond one's control. One chilly evening, standing on her balcony with the skyline glowing below, she raised her glass in memory. The wind carried the faint hum of distant traffic, of city life unbroken. To us, she whispered again. And for a moment, it felt as if Ryan's presence shimmered in the light, like the last reflection of a star before dawn. She knew she could never reclaim what was lost, nor did she want to forget. Life in the city would continue, indifferent, harsh, and endlessly moving. But somewhere between the noise and the silence, Maya felt the fragile echo of a love that had been real, luminous, and unforgettable. She took a deep breath, letting the cold wind touch her cheeks. The glass in her hand trembled slightly, but she held it steady. The city stretched endlessly before her, alive with possibility and peril alike. And for the first time in years, she didn't flinch. She didn't curse it, nor did she beg for the past. She simply existed within it, carrying the memory of Ryan like a piece of fragile glass, beautiful, sharp, and enduring.